Brought to you by PrayLatin.com, makers of prayer cards featuring complete English phonetic renderings of Latin pronunciations. For the past year or so, I have been reporting to you here about the strange case of the dispute between the Arlington Carmelite Nuns and Bishop Olson of the Dallas-Fort Worth Diocese. If you aren't familiar with the characters here, the Arlington Carmelites are a traditional order of nuns who have resisted the imposition of the evil document from Rome, Cor Orans, which essentially puts all what the Vatican considers similar religious orders under the same governing structure. The reality is you will get some very modernist nuns ruling over traditionalist religious orders. And so they've resisted it. And that's important to the story here. The other character is Bishop Michael Olson, the local ordinary. And he is best known before this story of telling some anti-Moloch ritual activists, those who will try to protect the youngest from having the gravest, most evil harm done to them imaginable with the willing permission of the state. He told them before a certain decision came down from the courts a couple of years ago that lit the progressives on their minds on fire. He told the activists essentially to not be so partisan. He came down against the work the activists were doing. Thankfully, the activists ignored him because, obviously, they should ignore him. We have a story now brought to us both by an overseas news outlet as well as from the diocesan offices of Bishop Olson himself that the Carmelite nuns are now allegedly seeking or receiving the sacraments from canceled priests. We'll say canceled for one of the two priests named because there's not enough details about him. The other priest they're receiving the sacraments from is being alleged by Michael Olson to have been on a list of priests known to have been accused of the Ted McCarrick evils. If anyone from the Arlington Carmelites are seeing this, please feel free to email me. If there's an email in the description box below, I'll keep an eye out for it. A response that you will, if you have a response to the statement issued by Michael Olson. I will keep an eye out for it and I will give you due time because I don't necessarily trust the allegation being made. But we're going to go over this today. So for this, first we start with the headline from Info Vaticana, which is in Spain. The Belarado of Texas. Bishop Olson alleges unlicensed priests are ministering to Arlington Carmelite nuns. Unlicensed priests. That means generally it's a translation issue, but a more accurate translation would be that these are priests without faculties given by the diocese. These are priests who are operating without permission of the diocese. For some of you, that's a deal breaker immediately. But there's been an issue in the church for the last decade or more of traditionalist orders being targeted by Rome for being shut down. Oftentimes, they're very valuable real estate centers in this. Now, Bishop Olson has publicly said he's not interested in their real estate. Fine, we'll take him at face value on that statement. But there has been a recurring pattern of traditionalist orders having very, very, very valuable property getting crushed by Rome or by local ordinaries with the assistance of Rome, and their real estate being taken and sold on the market to go pay off some of the McCarrick problem debts from 20 years ago, or to shore up their finances if the diocese is on paper healthy. And so one can be forgiven for thinking, I think, that that's what's going on here. Because their real estate, as many have pointed out, is very valuable in the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area. Very, very, very valuable. Here's some details on this from the Spanish outlet, and then we'll go to the statement directly from Bishop Olson. So, from the article, quote, "The conflict began in May 2023 when these Carmelite nuns denounced their bishop, Bishop Michael Olson, who publicly accused the superior of this convent of breaking her vow of chastity, claims that the nuns and her sisters were inciting hatred and animosity against him. Following the Vatican's intervention in the battle between the nuns and their bishop, the nuns this year refused to submit to the American Carmelite Federation that Rome has imposed on them to supervise them. The dispute has been bitter and at times bizarre. Last June, the Vatican named Olson pontifical commissioner for the sisters and retroactively cleared any and all canonical procedures raised by Olson's past actions involving the monastery. Olson subsequently issued a decree firing Gerlach. Gerlach here is somebody they didn't name in the article beforehand, but he was somebody that the nuns were seeing as their superior after denouncing the bishop. Let's continue. But the nuns apparently continue to recognize him, Gerlach, as their superior. Last August, the nuns issued a statement rejecting Olson's authority after enduring months of unprecedented interference, intimidation, assault, public and private humiliation, and spiritual manipulation. More recently, last May, the Vatican rejected complaints by the nuns about the bishop's investigation into their monastery into alleged violations of her vow of chastity by the prioress. The canonical warning given to the 9 sisters not to obstruct the bishop's investigation is also legal. Olson had temporarily suspended Mother Teresa Agnes as prioress in April 2023 as a precautionary measure, which the Order's chapter confirmed. End quote. There's some context provided by this outlet on the general situation. They did leave out that the vows of chastity, the violation of the vows of chastity by the Mother Superior, she admitted to doing it under essentially what would be duress. She was under the influence of mind-altering substances, which were medication of some kind. People have spread all sorts of vicious rumors about the nature of that medication. I won't do that here, but you will see, I'm sure, in the comments, people saying one thing or another about what it was. But in no real decent system would any kind of confession under those circumstances be considered valid. It would not be binding on anybody. But the bishop continues to invoke those allegations against her. Now, that having been said, let's turn now to Bishop Michael Olson to see what he has to say. And again, if any of the sisters at the Arlington Carmelite Nuns sees this video, feel free to email me a link to any response you have, and I will do a video on it. Again, at the time of this recording, no such statement had been issued. So the bishop published this on the diocese's website. This is where we're getting it from. So the statement to the faithful of the Diocese of Fort Worth by Bishop Michael F. Olson regarding the Arlington Carmelite Monastery, dated 18th of July, 2024, this past Thursday. And it reads as this. Mother Maria of the Incarnation, OCD, President of the Association of Christ the King and Superior of the Arlington Carmel, has informed me that the Reverend Christopher Clay, a priest of the Diocese of Scranton, who has been prohibited from the exercise of priestly ministry since June 2004, who has previously been denied permission to exercise priestly ministry in the Diocese of Fort Worth, has celebrated Mass at the Arlington Carmel, at the invitation of the former prioress. He did so without my knowledge and without requesting permission or faculties from me or any official of the Diocese of Fort Worth or from the Diocese of Scranton. The Diocese of Fort Worth has been in contact with officials in the Diocese of Scranton and learned Father Clay is included on its list of, quote, credibly accused individuals, and confirmed he remains prohibited from presenting himself as a priest, wearing clerical attire, celebrating Mass publicly, and celebrating any other sacraments. I have also been informed that the Reverend Marshall Roberts, a priest of the Diocese of Scranton without faculties for ministry, has celebrated Mass at the Arlington Carmel, at the invitation of the former prioress. He did so without my knowledge and without requesting permission or faculties from me or any official of the Diocese of Fort Worth or from the Diocese of Scranton. I continued to work with Mother Maria of the Incarnation to restore the sacramental life of the Arlington Carmel. However, until the sisters accept her appointment as their legitimate superior, I am unable to grant permission or faculties for the celebration of the sacraments to any priest of the Diocese of Fort Worth or from another diocese or religious institute. I ask the faithful of the Diocese of Fort Worth and all people of goodwill to continue to pray with me for the Catholic Church in North Texas, in particular the Arlington Carmelites. And that is a statement from Bishop Michael Olson. The other priest, the second priest that is not on the list of credibly accused of the Diocese of Scranton, may be a member of the Coalition for Canceled Priests, although if anybody from that organization has seen this video, and if you know anything about those priests, please let me know. This is actually important. The other priest, I will say this much. I, as a rule, don't report on some priest in Diocese X somewhere being accused of McCarrick kinds of issues. I just don't. It's not something that I generally approve of, and here's why. Because I was once told in my formative years that the fastest way to destroy a priest's reputation is to falsely accuse him of that deed. There is no recovering from it. So until the processes go through, the canonical processes, the secular ones, because they're always involved now, I generally don't touch the story, because a false accusation is enough to destroy a priest, and he can never get his reputation back. And I'd like to know if that other priest, the one who's on their list of credibly accused, had any kind of process done to him that was actually appropriate, including the secular process. or at least the full canonical process? Do we know for a fact that this happened? Or did he deny it vociferously and is now working a 9-to-5 job somewhere best as he can because he can no longer function as a priest? And I'm curious how many men who are out there who have had their priesthoods essentially destroyed because they were too traditional or too rigid, and so somebody accused them of that to get rid of them. I know there are many of them out there, many such cases. But this priest may also be the real deal, and he may be a profound lapse of judgment from the Arlington Carmelites. That may be the case. So, if anyone from the Arlington Carmel is listening to this, please send me a response if you can. I know some of you occasionally do. I'm curious what you have to say about this, so let me know in the comments. Do you tend to side with Bishop Olson on this? Do you think the Arlington Carmelite nuns have gone too far? The story's been going on for 14 months now, at the very least. That's how long I've been reporting on this for. So, I'm curious if you think this has gone on too far, or that the nuns should stand their ground and not let their bishop impose a modernist, someone who might be a modernist nun, over their religious community. Let me know in the comments what you think about this, please. Hey, like and subscribe if you haven't. It certainly helps. So does sharing this on social media. That helps too. And as always, pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.